Despite 3 wars and hostilities between India and Pakistan, Indus Water Treaty has survived and endured for over 6 decades. Brokered by the World Bank, the treaty was signed between Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Pakistan President General Ayub in 1960. But the Pahalgam attack that claimed 26 innocent lives has cast a shadow over its future. India has blamed Pakistan for the attack and in response announced a series of measures including suspension of IWT. With IWT in abeyance, we are delighted to be joined by an expert, Engineer Iftikhar Drabu. He has worked in India as well as in China on multiple hydropower projects. In 2007, he co-authored a paper offering a viable and way forward for both the countries on IWT. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Iftikhar Drabu.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks a lot.
Can you explain to us what actually is this IWT and how much water flows to Pakistan through these 6 rivers that are part of the IWT? And also, do we have the storage capacity or the reservoirs to hold up the water?
See, as you said, the IWT is Indus Water Treaty, and the Indus issue actually, we generally tend to think of the problem between India and Pakistan and the Indus Water Treaty coming after 47. But the fact of the matter is that this actually predates it. It was in, I think, 1910 or around that time when the British government wanted to improve the canal network in Punjab and Sindh. Sindh used to be a province of the Bombay. And at that stage, 2 princely states, Bahawalpur and Bikaner, they had the reservations and had objections because it would cut down on their water supply from Satluj.
Okay.
So there were discussions, negotiations happening, and nothing was concluded till 1947. At the time of partition, both the governments signed a standstill agreement amongst themselves, and by virtue of that, the water from these rivers was allowed to flow to Pakistan, which the standstill agreement expired in April, and from 1st of May, water was stopped flowing to Pakistan. But when I say flowing to Pakistan, it was the water not flowing in the rivers, but the water that was being fed into the canals. So there was a bit of a very serious situation in Pakistan at that time, and both the governments then met and signed an interim accord which is called the Dominion Agreement between the 2 countries. And after that they couldn't reach a consensus till, as you said, World Bank had to intervene, and it took them about 9 years to reach a consensus and sign the deal in 1960. So this actually, there are 6 number of rivers which form the Indus Basin. The 7th river is Kabul River, which is coming from Afghanistan, but that's not really a part of the treaty. There are 6 rivers, and they have classified them into eastern and western rivers.
Okay.
The eastern rivers are, during the allocation, this was all done by engineers who did it in a very professional manner. They allocated, saw the demands of the various, of both the parties. In fact, one of the strange things is that both the parties saw, these experts had some kind of an idea of what they were looking at, but both the parties were asked to ask for water, how much do they require? And when they asked for it, they literally were very close to what these experts had in mind.
Okay.
So it wasn't that somebody was being coerced or forced into it. It was sort of mutually agreed that okay, or at least they felt that this is our requirement, and they were being very honest as any professional would be in their coming up with their demands. So 3 western rivers are Chenab, Jhelum, and Indus. Indus flows right through upper reaches of Ladakh area. Okay. Aksai Chin area, and Jhelum and Chenab are known, and then you have the Satluj, Beas, and the Ravi.
Okay.
So as per this treaty, the full rights of these 3 eastern rivers were given to India.
Okay.
And Pakistan was given rights on the western rivers, which is Jhelum.
That's the Jammu and Kashmir rivers, 3 rivers in Jammu and Kashmir.
By some strange coincidence, the 3 rivers fall within what used to be the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. Yes.
That's Jhelum,
Chenab, and Indus. Eventually, all these rivers, the 5 rivers, flow into Indus, including the 7th one, in Kabul
Okay.
through Pakistan. But when the western rivers, India has its rights on its usage. But the main thing is that they cannot really have storage, large storage. There's a certain amount of storage allowed on the main river or on the tributaries of the river, but they can't make huge storages.
So what is the hit Pakistan would take if we stop water flowing to Pakistan? From these three rivers, that's the western rivers.
So they have, because their irrigation networks have been developed, and that was part of the Indus Water Treaty. The World Bank gave them loans for constructing their own networks, because all the canal network, or most part of the canal network, was in Pakistan, but the headworks were in India, which is the place where you take off from the river, where you get the water from the river. They were in India, so they were paid money to build those headworks and let the connect them to their canal system. The water flow would be, I think, in summers or in the high discharge periods, I don't think it would be a problem, much of a problem. But during lean season, if the water was to be stopped, or even like sowing season, when you actually require quantities of water, it could create problems for them.
And how much storage capacity we have to not allow the water to flow into Pakistan?
We're talking of very large numbers here. We're talking of billions of cubic meters. So I don't think any country would have that kind of a storage available now. We have the storage which is available on the eastern rivers, or the amount of water that is supposed to flow. We are not even using that full water.
And do we have the capacity to stop the water, or do we have the capacity to store the water?
I don't think so. I don't think. I mean, eventually the plan is to have storage and also, maybe major water transfer schemes. But as far as I'm aware right now, I don't think we have enough storage to be able to withhold all the water.
And what does this IWT mean for the people of India or for people of Pakistan?
So these are lifelines. I mean, this is a typical case of, it's a classic case of repair in state. You have the upper reaches which have, like the India is on the upper side and the Pakistan is on the lower side. This is not a unique phenomena. When you say what's bit unique or special about it, we have these kind of agreements everywhere. We have an agreement with Bangladesh, the Ganga river sharing agreement. We have an agreement with Nepal, the Mahakali treaty. We have similar agreements in Nile, where you have 10 countries getting water from Nile. We have Mekong Basin, where you have Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and one more country where they are sharing water. So it's a typical standard agreement between two countries where they set out the rights.
And do they also have the conflict over waters?
Incidentally, we have an agreement, or there is an agreement between Jordan and Israel. And you can't have, they also have signed an agreement in 1950s for sharing water of the Jordan River. So it's nothing unique. There have been instances, even Nile, 10 countries, they are having the agreement and they're sharing water. But as you started with this, this has been hailed one of the most successful treaties in the world, that it withstood 3 wars. And people have still, there have been issues, there have been arbitration cases, neutral experts have tried to intervene, but in spite or despite that, the treaty has withstood the test of time. 65 years is a long time.
Reports suggest that if we stop water on western rivers, it can submerge Jammu and Kashmir by 13 feet water. So is it a rumor or a genuine concern?
I think these are mathematical calculations. That Jammu Kashmir will be submerged. It cannot be submerged. It's a very simple mathematical calculation. You calculate the total amount of water that flows, or an estimated amount of water that flows through the river, and then try to spread it out, that if it was to be stored, how much volume would you require? And that's how these calculations are taken.
And do we fear that it can submerge Jammu and Kashmir if water
how
is
will
full?
it submerge? I mean, I don't know.
If the water is stopped flowing to Pakistan?
No, but see, there are 6 rivers. Now, are you talking of all?
I'm talking about western rivers. That's the Indus, Chenab, and
out of that,
Jhelum.
the bulk there's a big river, Indus. So, it's right up in a very remote area. So, I don't know what could be done there. Chenab is there. Chenab has its own heavy discharges, which is much more than what we get in Jhelum. So, I don't think it would be. I really don't know what you mean by submerged. There's no way that Kashmir can be submerged.
Okay. So in 2021, a parliamentary panel recommended renegotiating this treaty with Pakistan, citing climate change. But it also pointed out that we need to build these reservoirs or dams to ensure that we use or utilize more water. So what is this plan feasible? Like what is the required reservoirs or the
No, I think
dams needed for on western rivers?
No, see, you have 2, 3 questions there. One of the things is that I wouldn't use the word renegotiate. I would think more appropriate is review. And climate change, yes, it is there. We do see erratic weather patterns. We have a lot more insight into the environment and ecology, which needs to be. Which if you are reviewing the treaty in light of the present scenario, populations have increased, the lifestyles have increased, urban water consumption has increased, our cropping patterns have changed. All this could be used to review the treaty, and as and where it's deemed appropriate, both the countries could agree on modification of some of the provisions. But renegotiating is probably a bit too harsh. A review of the things, and if you leave it to the professionals, engineers, I'm sure they would do a good job about it, being fair with both the countries, what's fair and reasonable for each of them.
And the second question was about the construction of reservoirs or dams for storing up the water.
No, I think storing up is, I don't know what the implications would be, but we do have storages. They may not be large storages, but it all depends on the topography of the river. If it's a deep gorge with a very steep slope, you can't store much water. If you have sort of open valleys with mild slopes, obviously you can store much water. And that's why if you really come to think of it, there are not really many storage schemes. Terry is one, Bakra is another one. But other than that, there are not really large ones. We have a large one in J&K, which is the Barsar, right up at the start of Chenab.
Okay.
But that is under consideration, and not much has moved on that front. That is a 1,000 megawatt scheme with a large storage.
And do we have the storage capacity on the 3 rivers that is on the in Jammu and Kashmir?
We do have what we call this diurnal storage. So we store water, use it up in high flood seasons, literally from March till about September. You don't need it because the river is full. But we do have storages in Baglehar. We do have in Salal. Salal used to be having some storage, but they're not very large storage.
Where do the things currently stand in terms of dispute on power projects? Like the team of experts from multiple countries traveled to Jammu and Kashmir last year for inspecting projects.
I don't recollect, but I think it could possibly have been. There is this Indus Water Commission, yes, which they do make visits. They meet every 6 months, and they review and exchange data and share information. And I think this experts which you're referring to I'm not sure, could possibly have been one of the experts who was involved in Kishinganga and Ratle.
Okay.
So they might have come here for a visit to see the claims of both the parties, because Pakistan has been disputing Neelam Jalim, or has been disputing Kishinganga, which is upstream of its Neelam Jalim project, and also on the storage for Ratle. So I think it could be those experts, neutral experts, who would have come and to review to see for themselves the ground situation.
The treaty has a graded mechanism for dispute resolution. So what would be the role of the World Bank in the current scenario?
See, generally the treaty starts with saying that both the parties will be amongst themselves. If they do not agree, then the commissioners would sit, and then the governments would sit. And if still doesn't, then you can refer it to a neutral expert.
Okay.
And then if it still doesn't get resolved, then you go for arbitration.
Okay.
The bank is one of the signatories to the treaty, but I'm not sure how the bank would directly intervene and become that arbitrator.
Okay.
The arbitrator provision is a separate one, wherein you can, and that has been evoked for Baglehar and other projects.
Pakistan has always objected to bottom sluices of hydropower projects. Why is it a flashpoint? And
it's not a flashpoint. I think it's a technical requirement. I don't know the details, but my understanding is that they apprehend that the bottom sluices could be opened, in potential, if there's situation of a war or they're not happy, it could actually flood Pakistan. A lot of water could be discharged from these bottom sluices.
And what is this? Can you explain to us what is this bottom sluices?
These are the openings or the gates at the lower levels of the dam.
Okay.
So these are generally for we use them everywhere for flushing of the silt.
Okay.
But in these cases, I think they have been they are not bottom sluices have not been provided for many of the dams, and I think in one case they were blocked.
The three rivers, the western rivers we are talking about, have a huge potential of generating electricity, yet we are the energy deficient state. Is the Chief Minister Umar Abdullah justified in deeming the IWT as unfair to Jammu and Kashmir?
We have a potential, or the state had a potential of about 15,000 megawatts, out of which, if I remember correctly, 2,000 were from Ladakh, which is not, with the UT now. So out of 13,000, very roughly, 3,500 is already commissioned. 3,500 megawatts have been started in the last maybe a decade or so. So that gets it to about 7,000 out of 13,000. And then we have about 1856, let's say 2,000 of Sawalkot, whose cost of generation, from what I hear, is going to be prohibitively expensive.
Okay.
And then we have Barsat, 1,000 megawatts, so that also has some environmental concerns. So if you see 7,000, 3,500 done, 3,500 under construction, 2,000 of Sawalkot and 1,000 of Barsat, that's about 10,000 are already there. And when you see these are potential, identified potential, that doesn't mean they're very lucrative. Because as you would imagine, whenever we look at a project, we try to do the easier ones first, the ones which are nearer, the ones which are more economically viable. So these projects are now not that viable. These are sort of, you've taken out the cream and the rest is left there. So they are that. And secondly, we have now other sources of energy, for example, solar. Now, solar has changed the whole scene. Solar used to be, I recall in 2005, it used to be about 18 crores per megawatt. And at that price level, 2005 price level, now it's a little more than 10% of that. 2-3 crores you can get a solar by today's price level. So that is basically the future.
Okay.
And if you ask me, I had done a paper on this, the future is a hybrid of solar and hydro.
Okay.
What we call pumped storages. So they would be the ones which would be the future. Answering your question, Indus Water Treaty has resulted in losses to the J&K. This has been under debate for the last, I think, 20 years now.
So is it justified?
No, I'm coming to that. 2009, the government, through Power Corporation, invited tenders for quantification of the losses. So the tenders didn't go through. Finally, if I remember correctly, it took them 9 years to award the contract.
Okay.
So I think it was awarded around 2018 or something around that date. And till date, I don't know what the situation is, but the findings have not been made public.
Okay. So they have not made the findings public.
The consultant has been appointed, but we don't know whether the consultant has submitted the report, what happened. I mean, 2018 to 2025, you're talking of 7 years, we don't really have much of an insight what's been happening.
You talked about solar power. So we are focused on hydropower, while as the world is looking at solar power. In fact, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also talked about solar energy being the future. Yes. So what is the way forward for Jammu and Kashmir also in this?
Solar power is, see what I said was, the problem with solar is that it's available during the day. Now if you want to save it for evenings, because the maximum load is in the mornings, which is we call the morning peak 6 to 8, and then the evening peak, which is 6 to 10. Yes. So that's where the maximum demand is, and that is when the solar is not available. So for that you would traditionally have these batteries, but they cost a lot and they need to be changed every 4 or 5 years. So what we could do is, we could have actually small storage schemes on the tributaries of Jhelum or other rivers and make pumped storages. So pumped storages are that you make a small dam, not a big one, yes, a small dam and another small dam. So you collect the water, release that water into this dam. Okay. During the peak hour, in the evenings. Okay. So during the day, for the first day, you've collected the water here. There's a hydro plant, so it generates power. Yes. It flows water, it generates power, and you supply the grid. Yes. In the day, during the daytime, you use solar power to pump this water back to the top. Okay. And in the evening, you put it down. Okay. So this is a hybrid kind of a system. So the water that was in the lower contour, the lower dam, is taken up into the higher dam, and this is the battery. This is the battery, and then that water, and you don't use the water. It actually uses about 1 or 2% because of the evaporation. Okay. Otherwise, it's the same water being recycled. So the solar power pumps, it's a reversible thing. They pump water up. In the evenings, they pump the water down. Okay. That is one. The advantage with that would be that you have these storage schemes.
Okay.
So whenever you feel that the meteorological forecast is that there's going to be heavy rain, you can drain these reservoirs. So they will act as flood moderation storages.
Okay.
So the water will be collected from one to another, and they will be in cascade. It's not that you make one. You have one here, one here, one here. So they will be in cascade. They will control a lot of silt. You know, Wular is silted up, Jhelum is silted up. They will get silted up. You could use them as your tourist spots all along. You could have fisheries, pisciculture things. You could do so many things with these small storage dams. And this could be done locally at the village level. Each village could have its own thing which would provide them energy.
Since you have worked in China also, you have experience working there. So they are building a dam on Brahmaputra. So can you share some insights what actually that dam could do? And
no, I think they are basically,
what is the plan?
I think they call this, what we call Brahmaputra, they call
Sangpu?
Sangpu, they call it Sangpu. I think they're trying to make a dam there and try to pump water into the Tibet Plateau.
Okay.
And but that's all, you know, the news reports, what we hear is that they're trying to move this, you know, like they do these big projects like Three Gorges and all. So this is also one of their big projects by which they will be pumping water to Tibet Plateau.
So, so they want to dry the water or flow
Not dry,
water?
they need the water and they're trying, I mean, if the contours permitted us, we have similar projects. We have Polavaram Dam, we have interlinking of rivers project. So we also have some major water transfer schemes, you know, partly implemented, partly on the drawing board, being undertaken in the country. So this is one of the similar schemes.
So can India mimic the same plans of on the western rivers or on the eastern rivers that are under like IWT?
Yeah, I think the eastern rivers, they've already done it because the topography is favorable in the sense that, you know, it's plain area, you can make canals, they've irrigated Rajasthan with those kind of, you know, waters coming from there. That it is possible. It's
And on western rivers on
the topography is not very favorable.
Okay.
I mean, imagine now moving from Chenab river to Jammu, then to the plains. So it would mean a lot of, you know, these are massive water transfer schemes.
Okay, and changing the course of rivers, like interlinking the rivers. So that's one of the possibilities that experts are sharing. India can do.
No, they already have. This has been in the pipeline for 50 years. Some of it is done. Interlinking of rivers is a live thing. You know,
It's practical.
Yeah, it is.
It can be implemented.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
So how can it change the water from going to Pakistan?
No, you talk about this interlink. No, I'm talking about the interlinking, which is the
I'm talking
north,
about
south,
the interlinking of these three rivers so that the water flow can be changed or the course of rivers can be changed.
If you talk of engineering, anything is possible.
Okay.
But then you have it. It doesn't come free. It comes at a cost. Now, is it viable to do that? I think that's where the thing is. Otherwise, it's possible. It's just that, you know, you are talking of huge amounts of money being spent, long time of gestation. Otherwise, you can do anything. You can take water from here to Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. This was Engineer Iftikhar Drabu who talked about IWT and its suspension, especially when the war clouds are hovering between the two countries.